Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you as always from the Pine Hills Palace. I'm in the Xtreme Studios, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have the young 20-something Professor Pixel with me tonight as we're continuing our Season 1 coverage here on Xtreme TV of a particular TV show. In this case, it's Nick Knight, a.k.a. Forever Knight. He is a detective who's about 800 years old, trying to do the right thing and become human, to repay society for his sins, as they say in a great monologue. It's Canadian, and it's a late night 90s show, so we're watching. It's our first watch for both, and right now we're up to Season 1, Episode 8, Cherry Blossoms. And Pixel, usually the thing with Nick Knight, we've talked about this being a real low-budget kind of show at the time. It's very moody. It's got some avant-garde type shots to it, some ugly coloring and everything too, but it's kind of fitting. We get a little bit more vampire lore in this episode, but like all great cop shows, you have to spend your time in an ethnic part of town. Now, whether people consider that great, bad, indifferent, I like it because tonight it's what represents all of Asia, which I'm sure some of the subcultures or individual cultures may not like, and that's Chinatown, because we get a potential mob hit late at night with all the steam coming out of the grates, yet a woman escapes. And then we get some acupuncture foo, who might be an evil, or maybe is he? Acupuncturist here, an older guy that's like in every Asian side character movie in the 80s and 90s. We'll talk about him more in a moment. And a little bit of a backstory here, too.
I'm so sorry.
And we get some really great kissy face here in this episode as well. Interesting episode. What's your initial take on it?
Initial take. This episode is... It's okay. So with everything that we've been going and seeing for every single episode, we get the typical fashion of, oh, it's Nick Knight, and here's a flashback to accompany the story. It'll make sense in the end. In this one, there is a flashback, but it's not that much of a flashback. It's only like...
It's not dramatic, is it?
No.
Kind of lame. You almost don't know it's a flashback.
Because, yeah, exactly. Like, the way he's dressed, it looks like, oh, okay, it looks like he was just dressed out for dinner. But the thing is that I did like the emotional elements within this episode. Because with that being, with the string for James Hong, who was in this episode, that's great. I love that guy. But for that entire climax of this episode, it does help pull that through. But again, this is another episode. There's nothing supernatural going on other than Nick Knight existing, which I guess should be enough for a certain amount of episodes. But we're 8 episodes in. Can he face something a little more?
Well, it's all about him trying not to do vampire stuff, and so their $100 special effects budget is pretty much used up whenever they have him do a stunt or whatever. Now immediately we get this special agent who's about 5'2", 75-pound guy come walking in. He's Asian, and he's just a dwarf compared to everybody, and he does a decent job of acting, but already off the bat he's not smiling. He's looking at the back of the taxi cab, and he's realizing, I'm the special agent in charge here because it's immigration, blah, 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 whatever it is like that. And you already know he's guilty. At least I did. Did you get any sense at all here early on? It's because he was an ass.
Not early on, no. Later on, it became clear, but right at first, it didn't hit. Not me. I'll admit that.
Well, apparently there's a lot of pressure on Stanky and Nick Knight to do this the right way, because they have to involve him, because otherwise they'll take it over, and there's a lot of eyes looking at it. And again, one of the things about the show is not only it's kind of silly sounding in that it's about Nick Knight working the graveyard shift, because he's got not phobia for light, he's physically ill to light, is the way his character is described. The show means it was also shot a lot of times here too, so I like it. You get a lot of nighttime stuff, almost no daytime, and it's kind of appropriate. But when Nick's scouring the area and looking around, we get, I don't know what to call it other than you get that little 2-inch bar that goes across his eyes. He lifts his head up. We get, as he sees, maybe it's blood, we get vampire vision, where he's looking around and he senses something. And because the shitty prints that exist that you can watch for free out there anywhere, if you can find them, are so low key, you can't quite tell what's going up, because there's a few scenes there where it's like, damn it, if this was at least DVD quality, that'd be fine, because he notices a dark figure scurrying up the fire walkway. And then, of course, as we found out what he likes to do is little B&E, a little break and entering, because, mortal laws mean nothing to him. He's going to do things his way. But the backstory we get interspersed with this, I thought was kind of interesting, because they show him walking into a lady's boudoir, whatever you want to call it, and you go, is she a madam? Is something illegal going to happen? And he's dressed really nice, right? I mean, he's got not quite the ascot, but he's just looks very good. He's clean shaven, which I like. And I like it when he gets to act a little bit, because apparently she's a healer. She can cure people of their, what should she call it? Their temptations, their lusts, their desires, whether it's sex, whether it's money. And she goes, in your case, blood. And so, of course, people might think it's stupid. I like this kind of stuff when you have TV shows where you investigate something in the culture. She's wearing a very nice Chinese robe. And this is, of course, pre-communist China when it takes place. I think it was like 1916 or something. And so he walks in there, and she does a really great job of acting. And you've got where she's like explaining to him what's going to happen. And a little young boy walks in with tiny little 2 shots of tea, it appears to be. Which I don't know about you, but I just... that kind of shot tea or whatever like that they like. I just sake, I can't stand. That's Japanese, but little stuff like that's not typical tea that I enjoy. But of course, you get the little talk, what's going to happen? And she's cool. What I liked about the lady here was very, very confident what's going to happen. And she goes and she puts one of the acupuncture needles, I don't know what they're called, in a certain spot, like below his left ear. And his right arm goes limp. So this is great, because I always mark out when I see this stuff, because I'm going, man, I'd love to act like I pretend your right arm is limp as she sticks this into you. I'm like, okay, this is what you call high quality television. This is not production value. This is acting. So take away production value, you still got to have acting, except for Jeanette walks in behind him. And then, of course, it cuts to present time where we see an old guy having a gun on Nick. Let me pause here and let you fill in.
Yes. So at the acupuncturist office in the modern day, where Nick goes ahead and he's able to slip into, James Hong, the special guest star of our evening, he is holding a gun out on Nick because, well, he's not supposed to be there, for one thing. And he quickly does not trust him. Does not trust anything Nick is saying, but understands that he's a cop. He goes ahead and puts away the gun. He's not going to go straight away. But we eventually do get to see a clip that shows us why he might just pause, because he has the face of the man that killed his mother, supposedly. Supposedly.
It's
he was looking all vamped out holding his mother. I can't blame the kid for thinking that.
Well, I thought the kid was kind of adorable in his own way here. And you're like, okay, this is going to be a plot point. And of course, you got to get this stanky angle where he's trying to like work with the cop during the day. So it's a nice use of splitting up the characters, because Nick's like, well, Captain, I work better on my own. And the whole thing is they're trying to find this woman that was supposed to have been a part of the hit, but she's missing. So they feel like her life's in danger, and they got to get a hold of her. So it's on. So I actually thought Blockhead, the captain, I forget his name, Stonegate, whatever the hell his damn name is. I actually thought he was pretty good in this episode. So it's weird. Every couple episodes, he mildly impresses me. And I feel like, are we still getting where characters change a bit? Because we talked about that with Stanky a little bit. And then here, basically, it's just filler for what's about to happen next, because the whole backstory that I liked was when a kid comes in and sees Nick over it and he's vamped out. So we're getting a lot of vamp in this. You're like, okay, what happened with Jeanette? And of course, we'll see a little bit more here at the end. But did you know, spoiler alert, that the kid was actually going to be James Hang, whatever his name is, here as an old man? Did you make that connection immediately? Because I did.
No, with how it
when they flash back and all that, they're in the same place.
Yeah,
it's the same person like 80 years later. Did you automatically get that?
That's pretty obvious to me. Yeah, whenever you go ahead and do that, whenever you cut and it's the same.
Yep.
At least look at them. Yes, that they're supposed to be the same. But this sounds bad, because like I like the show, I do, but I'm legitimately just can't find myself being very interested in the mom angle of this entire episode.
No, because it's not really there. That's one of the things that's happened in some of these episodes is there's an angle that's supposed to carry the main plot, really just as a device for the more interesting stuff, which is either historic angle, and it's usually not a Shanky thing, but I hate, and I'm getting, this may sound bad to some people listening, the whole female angle with what's going on, like when they're in strip clubs or Jeanette or something like that, sexy, right? Because we've had some interesting femme fatales here. I'm thinking of the one that like threw herself off the building. I mean, so I kind of like the idea that there can be some absurdity in these episodes that maybe we don't get till about halfway through, because again, what you have here, even though it's plot related, not really mob related, is that he goes and he tells the captain, hey, look, we found her, but I think she's in a safe spot right now, and she's going to get help, and she's kind of whatever. And he goes to get medical examiner love interest to help out with tending to her wounds and stuff, which is kind of interesting. But I like the fact that he has this sneaking suspicion that there might be a mole. God forbid that whenever anybody has that sneaky suspicion that there might be a mole, it actually comes true, because I've never seen any TV show or movie where there was a sneaky suspicion somebody was a mole and it wasn't. But there's still a little bit of a swerve later that shouldn't be, but I kind of like that. It's not really a swerve. But they find the girl, they tend to her or whatever. And it's interesting because we get probably one of the worst vamped out, and the vamping has nothing to do with it. We get perhaps one of the worst martial arts action sequence ever to be recorded on television history. And I include anything with the modern reboot of the female kung fu or anything else with quick cuts and stunt doubles. But you get some of these guys running up to catch her, and you can clearly see the packs he's got exploding while the guy's shooting a gun at him while he's got the vamp eyes going on. And I kind of like seeing him as a vamp thing because he carries it well. But the neat scene here that I thought if this was in a theater, everybody would clap, is he's got Natalie there. She's got a gun on her, and Nick's coming up while the guy's shooting her and all that. And you see the old guy sneaking up behind her in the dark, and he takes the little needle, pricks it in the dude's neck, and he just drops instantly. Kind of as a reminder that, that's what the woman did earlier. You're like, that's cool. That was great. This is cheesy, and I'm eating it up.
Yeah, and you're getting the flashes in between. I have it up right now. You have the flashes in between showing what he's seen. He's seen Nick all vamped up. Like, he's exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And Natalie's like, Nick, he saw you. And so eventually, when Stonehill, whatever, his chief comes in, and they go ahead, and the old man gives a statement. He mentions nothing. Whoa, surprise, shock. But he did ask for a ride home. And
yeah, because Nick's like, fuck, I'm busted. He saw me, and he knows he saw me. Like, he couldn't vamp him out of it.
Yep. And he doesn't know why he's not exposing him. But
this is when it gets good. This last 10, 12 minutes is the best part of the episode. It finishes very strong.
Because he goes ahead and he says, I know what you are. Yes. But
you could have told him what you saw.
Whenever Nick feels good. He's like, okay, well, this guy, he's keeping the secret. He's an old man. What will you do now? I'm an old man.
He's showing the wisdom of the ages by saying, hey, I can't really say anything. No one's going to believe me. I'm old, whatever. I think that's kind of good. So when they seem to have an understanding, what happens?
Nick turns around. Needle!
Needle flew right in the neck, baby.
Nick wakes up. He's laying back. James Hong is over him. He's like, I know what you are. You killed my mother. I love it because I love James Hong. He's great. He's fantastic. I love him. And whenever he shows up, he gives his performances all, here especially, because he has Nick laying down there. He can't move. He's paralyzed. And he goes ahead, I know what I must do. I must avenge my mother. And Nick's like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. There were more people there that night. You have to remember. You remember, there's a woman, a beautiful woman, talking about Jeanette.
Yes.
And it starts flashing in his mind. And he says, you could ask her, but I'm trying to remember how he contacted her. Just mentally? Like,
I that was unclear to me.
yeah, maybe.
I that's the one thing about this episode. I'm going, I feel like I missed something here. I don't know. I have to point this out, and it's not an excuse for not catching it, but in our Columbo live review that we do, and we're starting season 2, episode 1 tonight, Etude in Black. The one thing we've talked about before, sometimes there's plot holes. Some of it can be kind of like, it doesn't bother me or whatever. But one thing definitely with Columbo episodes is true about Forever Night, and I mentioned this before, when you're going and you're looking to find this, there is an American version, and there's a Canadian version, and there's actually a European version. The difference between us three is the layers of extra stuff that's included. So when you have more commercial time, you're going to cut scenes out. They're superfluous, don't need it. I think the European market had a couple scenes of maybe some brief nudity, maybe some ass or some boob or whatever, early on, like in the strip clubs or whatever, and some violence you may edit, whatever. And so to me, I just go with something slightly trimmed here that might have explained it. And is this an edited version? Because we're watching the 47-minute version, which I think is the longest version. These are the ones that you can find free on YouTube or the Internet Archive, or depending on what various streaming services in the United States you can get. But I felt like I missed this too. So it's not an excuse, but it's an observation. I definitely felt that way too. It's like, how the hell did she just kind of show up out of the blue? Did I miss something or whatever? But I'll just say this as you finish up the last few minutes, and then I'll respond. Is I think every guy should have in his repertoire, at least in his past, a girlfriend that's basically just a sexual partner that just licks his face all the time, constantly, and nibbles on the bites without really, doing anything, because that's obviously what Jeanette wants to do, and that's what happens here. And I just thought, man, she's really digging on him, although she's still under the spell of LaCroix. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, but whenever she does show up in the modern day, she vamps up immediately. It's like, I can kill him in less than 10 seconds. No, Jeanette! Tell him what you saw.
It's good acting, with his voice and everything here and the way he does it. He's not getting pissed that he's going to die. He's really being sincere about it. He's selling the, hey, I really don't want to kill and hurt everybody thing. I'm buying the vibe.
Yeah. And as she's explaining, God, she is something to look at. I can't lie. This is a good scene. When she was steaming on her way up the stairwell, that was all natural. But no, eventually they do convince him that it was LaCroix, another man. He just had to remember, and it does spark him. And so he drops his act of vengeance because neither of them did it. LaCroix's gone. And then they go back to Nick's apartment.
Yeah, it's the only thing I'll say about the scene is obviously he's not going to die or whatever. But I like how he had the wooden stake already prepped out, and that's the sign of a really great experienced acupuncturist, that you have about 1.5 foot long wooden stake that you can drive cleanly, like you've whittled it out of something while you're fishing. I mean, it's tremendous. I love it a lot. And I gotta say this. It's great acting because, again, like I say, he's just laying there letting everybody else do stuff. And that's not easy to create the sense of belief, as campy as it is, or low budget with candles in the background, the weird whitish blue lighting that they have on TV and stuff. But at this, I got to say, it seems kind of wimpy and a cop out that you didn't really notice that she was there with LaCroix in the past. And I did like how she's sucking his face, but then LaCroix vamps out, because this is the most vamp vision we've seen in any episode by far, by at least triple or quadruple. There's like at least 5-10 scenes of this, of everybody's eyes lit up with that yellow bar or whatever, and a really bad prosthetic. But you do see where he's trying to comfort the lady that was trying to help him. Well, I think this is the first time we've seen in the old historic timeline where Jeanette seems slightly concerned because she realizes Nick's whatever, because she takes the needle out of his neck and runs after LaCroix, because he kind of is responsible for them. But I gotta say this about Jeanette in the present time here. Very gorgeous actress. I really like how she wears very slinky stuff, very like a classic French kind of look to her or whatever. And as dopey as I always thought the LaCroix guy looked, his acting goes against it. It's like when you see somebody and then they start singing, you're like, man, I wasn't expecting that voice out of them. It's kind of like that. But they go back to his place, and things start getting a little steamy, because he's he's doing the all shucks routine while she's drinking blood, and they're having a little ha-ha laugh over food, which is the way you end cop TV shows. And she recognizes his blood, but she's got on the long, not scars, but the thing that goes over your hand and your arm all the way up to your elbow and all that too. I mean, she's completely decked out for just incredible sucky face session. But of course, Natalie, like every woman, shows up at your door unannounced and all that. It's like, no, come in. And she plays the bitch card kind of in a way with each other. She's like, oh, Nick has said so much about you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better, and that's about it. And then we end. I'm like, okay, I don't mind that because we know it's about the two chicks colliding at some point. And that will happen. So I don't mind that as a simple way to develop it too. But all in all, I think, like you said, it's an episode. It's there. Talking about it, it's probably more fun than watching it. But the idea of this dude as an acupuncturist just taking out an 800-year-old vampire, I gotta admit it's something I've never seen before or thought of before, and it works for me.
Yeah, no, I like it too. We're saying about this episode, somebody said that they imagined James Hong acupuncturist vampire hunter would have been a fun show.
It would have been, right? I mean, it's just a different angle to it. It's
I'm interested in seeing with the end. This is the first time Jeanette and Natalie have actually met. Seeing where that goes, if it goes anywhere, we don't know.
You know that it will.
It will. I'll admit that's one of those threads that they will keep going. I know we didn't talk about Shanky a lot in this episode, but we got to give him some credit. He does a good job playing a cop. Like, seriously,
he's believable as a cop.
Absolutely.
It's just what kind of partner is he going to be? Because they make him beer dopey, right, with the food and all that kind of stuff. But he's a bit of a hard ass. I kind of like that side of him too.
Yeah. So he's got that comedic relief, but he also when the I can't remember the phrase I was just about to use. It's tough get going. Whatever.
Shit hits the fan.
When shit hit the fan, sure, why not? I don't know, but no, he does a good job. And he deserves credit for sniffing out that Quan was a mole all along.
Yeah, because it was his idea, and he lets everybody kind of know about it. So it is good. And when you have partners, if they're strong enough, you don't have to have them all on the screen at the same time doing everything together. I'll talk more about him later on because a part of me is starting to think, based on the strength of a few episodes he's been in, is should he find out about Nick sooner rather than later? And I'll just leave it there. And if so, how could they handle it? That could be some interesting drama because, again, it's all about how Nick lives in current times. And up to this point, there's not been a lot of TV shows that kind of really dealt with that. It's always, about resurrecting the past or whatever. And especially like Salem's Lot, the TV show, the movie from 79. Great, love it, still fantastic. It's about fitting in the modern world. This show definitely modernizes it. And this is pre-Buffy, this is pre-Angel, all that kind of stuff there too. So a decent episode, solid one too. At some point we may rank these episodes, but it's not bad. It's there. It's late night TV as it was. So I want to thank everybody for watching and listening here to Forever Night. Next week, we'll be doing season 1, episode 9. So check that out here, too. And I want to, of course, thank all the new people who have joined recently. Any comments, spending time with us. That's really appreciated. We're going to be going to the Columbo Live one here, season 2, episode 1, Etude in Black. I'm your host, Rob, for Professor Pixar, involved here at the Xtreme Movie Show. Thank you, and good night now.
This was not a Dan Curtis production. I see the confusion, though.